Hello, everybody, and welcome to our semi-first podcast, What Do You Do All Day? And we have here with us Miss Julie Bowles. Yay! And your host, Miss Summers.
Hello.
And myself, Miss G. We have to just start right off the bat with saying that we have already spoken to the lovely Miss Julie Bowles. And it did get deleted.
Technical difficulties
happened.
It was pretty sad.
So we're going to start with an intro just about maybe some technical problems that we've all experienced since this COVID life of ours. So that, what happened to the podcast, is probably my worst technological story from this COVID era.
I get a lot of, you're on mute, especially first thing in the morning.
Yeah, that's like a microaggression for the technology. How about you?
So just yesterday, I was observed by Mr. Fiorino, the assistant principal, and obviously poured so much into this specific pear deck I was giving. And the essay I was teaching in my AP class is called High School Confidential Notes on Teen Movies. And so it's really all about the different stereotypes and caricatures of the different cliques that you see in these 80s and 90s teen films. And so my very first question, so, here I am getting observed. My very first question is, which clique or stereotype do you see yourself as a part of? Well, apparently my pear deck multiple choice, I only put the jock, right? And I filled out the multiple choice for like the third slide, not the first slide. And the kids were like, thank you so much for thinking so highly of our athletic prowess. But most of us would not identify as the jock. And it was hysterical because, again, the stereotypes that were addressed in this essay were like the social queen, the queen bee, the goth kids,
the smart kid.
The nerd or geek. So there were so many different the hipster, so many different groups they could have put themselves in. And just right off the bat in my introduction, I was like, well, this is a fail.
I actually only see one group
yes,
you
exactly.
could be a part of. And it kind of is extra because I feel like you yourself are kind of a jock.
You can fit in.
So it looked like you were kind of really only being a little narrow-minded.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. All right. So we are teaching a lesson on resilience here, and we're moving forward, and we're going to make this podcast even better than the last. So thank you.
All right, so Ms. Bowles, our first question for you is pretty much an easy one, I guess. What do you do all day?
Well, I wish I could say like Kesha, I wake up in the morning feeling like P. Diddy, but I usually don't. My alarm goes off at about 5:15 a.m. I always check my son's diaper to make sure that there's no bedwetting.
Priorities.
And then I, in a fog, make my way through my morning routine. I'm usually out of my house by about 5:50 a.m. Stop at Wawa, get my black coffee. Usually I forget to pack my lunch the night before, so I'll grab some fruit that's overpriced at Wawa. And
so overpriced. Sometimes not good.
Sometimes not fresh, most times. Banana's not ripe, but that's, the choices I make. And I get here first thing in the morning, first car in the parking lot. It's always still dark. I meander through the hallway, and all I can hear are my boots stomping in the hallway, echoing in the hallway. I get to my classroom. I always check my email first. I try to get as much grading as I can do. And I would say anybody who's ever walked by my classroom, regardless of what time, anytime after 6:15 a.m., I am blasting a Pandora station. Now, it's interesting because my Pandora station is a lot of like Motown, Frank Sinatra. I think this morning it was like Ella Fitzgerald and the Temptations. And then there's like John Mayer that comes on, based on years of curating this playlist of what I like, what I don't like. Who knows what it's going to be on a particular day. And then students start coming in, and that's when I turn the magic on. I call it Dancing for Grandma. And people are like, what is Dancing for Grandma? I said, it's like when you're 4 or 5 years old and you only get to see your grandparents maybe like once a month, and you're in their kitchen and you're in your underwear, and they're like, dance for Grandma. And you're like, I love my grandma. She's the best. And you're like wiggling in your underoos or whatever it is. And she's filming you. And your grandmom's like, you're the best ever that lived. And you're like, I am the best.
And students, they have the same reaction as the grandma?
Students certainly do not. Most of them, when I was 31, I decided I wanted to become a coffee drinker. My period 1 students were like, you were enough without caffeine. You got to bring it down. Just last year, pre-COVID, one of my students told me I was, quote, Joe. And I'm like, what does that mean? And they're like, it means you're extra.
Caffeinated.
Yeah, you are extra.
Oh,
And I was like,
that though. Does it refer to
interesting.
coffee?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what.
They could be getting us,
slang
and the
is-
Joe could not be cool.
Yeah, it could be. I assume the way
You
they
gotta
looked at
keep
me at like 7:38 a.m., I was like, I don't think this is a compliment, but I'm going to take it as a
Yeah,
compliment.
totally. You
So
were all Joe about
I
it.
was so Joe. As I move through the day, I really try to connect with people, be it other teachers, students. I'm always singing. I'm always laughing. I'm certainly always oversharing. I'm trying to take, Beowulf written in the 6th century and modernize it so that kids can understand how they use kennings in their everyday lives. So I'll say, Beowulf, Prince of the Geats, your parents are keepers of the car keys, right? So just making some of those connections, and it's been more difficult in COVID times because I don't see as many students, and then to make sure you're including kids who are virtual students. So it really is exhausting. By the end of the day, I feel like I have given 180% and I have nothing left to give. But then I hop in my car and I drive home, and I have a little 3-year-old who wants,
Call that my second shift.
there you go, second shift. So, I love this job. I love that, people say to me, but you teach the same things year after year. And I said, but I have different kids every year. And not only that, I have right now 6 classes of different kids. So what might work in one class or the way a discussion might move in one class, it's completely different when the next group of kids come in. Even today, I said to one of my classes, a question was asked, no one responded. I'm like, don't all talk at once.
Yeah.
And then the very next period, you had 10 kids who wanted to contribute. So
Like their own culture, like
yeah,
each class.
absolutely. It really is a different adventure every year, and it's a different adventure every 75 minutes that we teach.
What would you say has been the hardest challenge? Like, you kind of mentioned it, how you don't see the kids. Like, are you referring to the black boxes?
So I think, again, I'm someone who really values relationships, and I try to build relationships. And I feel like if we can build some sort of rapport, you'll buy into whatever it is that I'm selling that day. And they're kids at this point in the year. I've never seen their face and I've never heard their voice. Now they're still participating by submitting Google Classroom assignments or we do Pear Deck or Jamboard or Kahoot every single day. So I know they're there. I know they're present, but really just having kids in person who you see smile, you see laugh, you see them look around. I don't know if kids are confused, but when I see them in person, I'm like, okay, you are not understanding what I'm saying right now. So let me clarify that. And so I think that has been a challenge this year. I think also, I'm sure you've heard the analogy of building the plane midair.
Yes,
We don't know.
absolutely.
We didn't know what the virtual model looked like until we did it. We certainly didn't know what the hybrid model looked like until we did it. And so I think everyone, at least everyone that I see, is really stepping up to the challenge and sort of exceeding expectations. But it requires a lot of hard work. And I think for me, my joke all year long has been first year teacher effort with retirement energy. I couldn't be more exhausted than I am day to day. I feel like I am a 60-year-old woman by the end of the day. Some days I don't even know if what I'm doing is effective, but I know I'm busting my behind trying to make my lessons as accessible and as entertaining as possible.
Well, singing definitely helps, and dancing. So
Yeah.
I agree.
You're on the right track.
agree. And sometimes you don't get the feedback, especially now. But as a veteran, I think you know that the efforts are being received, and you'll hear it. Not today, but down the line. You probably already hear that from past students, but in my head, and maybe I'm just being too hopeful, but these kids, I think you'll hear from in the future even more. I think. I'm not sure.
I just, my heart breaks for these kids
I know.
because they are experiencing something at this really important time in their lives, this transitional period. They got robbed.
And none of us can relate. We
No.
can't.
Mm-mm.
So we can be here and we can listen, but we can't say, this is what I did when You can't.
No, I
nothing.
never lost a sports season. I never was not able to participate in a school musical and hear the live applause or reactions,
Yep.
laughter of an audience. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I just think that you phrased it perfectly. These kids have been robbed, and everybody's trying their best, and we're all trying to make it through this. But, you know, I don't fault them for not turning their cameras on.
We always say that when we have hard things. We're like, listen, we know we're pretty much pulling teeth trying to get you to get these cameras on, and I'll keep doing it. But I do understand why you don't. Like we always say, I don't want to stare at myself on the screen either. But we really appreciate when your cameras are on. It's just like, oh.
But thank goodness for technology, because could you imagine these kids
All being
and
home with
we
them.
teachers with no connection to their friends at all?
No, so I was a senior in 1996 during the Great Blizzard of 96, and everything just shut down.
Yeah.
And there was
For
no
2
way our
days.
teachers could communicate with us. There's no way that I was out of school for like a week and a half, I think.
It might have been 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very
yeah.
long, it was an extended period of time, and we just lived our best lives. And that's why I think there's really, I really appreciate the fact that Dr. Fetcher allowed students to have that traditional snow day this year, because I think they needed that. So much has been taken away from them that it is important to remember these are still kids.
I think we need to go to music.
Yes.
And concerts. So please tell us about a concert that you will never forget.
So I've been fortunate enough to have so many wonderful concert experiences. I've seen Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, I've seen the Dixie Chicks, I've seen The Cure, I've seen Dave Matthews like 30 times in concert. I
listened to him on the way to school today. And every time I take a break and come back to it, I'm like, this is great. Anyway, go ahead.
No, fantastic. I mean, it's that's usually the gift I like to give is good seats to a concert.
That's a great gift.
It is. So I've had two. I can't narrow it down to one. I saw Beyonce in concert in 2013, and it was the Mrs. Carter World Tour. And I was training for the New York City Marathon, so I ran like 14 miles in the morning.
That's another story.
That's another story for another day, yes.
Yes.
And I did that probably at like 6 a.m. And so by 8:30 a.m., I was in line at the Wells Fargo Center. I think I was like the 18th person in line. So already 17 people had lined up earlier than that.
Were you showered?
I was showered and
Okay.
I was dressed and like ready for the day.
Wow. All right.
Because I knew I was going to have to hunker down for like 11 hours or whatever it was at that point. So I made friends with all of the people in line, and the joke was once they released us, and you know, they admit you one by one, but as a former Division I, 2 sport college athlete, I looked at these people around me and I was like, once we're in,
goodbye.
I will
Leave
bite
me
you,
in the
claw
dust.
you, kick you, punch you, elbow you, whatever it takes
You'll be in front.
to see my best friend Beyonce, I will be in that front row.
Oh my God.
And so
Friendships.
not only, and we forged friendships. I'm still like Instagram friends with some of these people. I made the cover of Beyonce's Facebook page, and it was a picture of me running with, I had these letters printed out that spelled Beyonce. So it was me running with the letter B, and it was like on the cover of Beyonce's Facebook page. And I probably had over 100 people contact me via text, phone, former students via email saying, is this my 11th grade English teacher on the cover of Beyonce's Facebook page?
We're going to be providing photographic evidence.
Yes.
of this.
Yes, because I happen to know that this one is true.
Check the links below.
So then that gave me the taste of like Beyonce is Queen Bee, and I need to see her at all costs, no matter what it takes.
She recognizes you
So
as
we're-
a soulmate for
We're
her.
basically best friends.
Basically.
I'm godmother to Blue Ivy. Blue Ivy does not know that, but that's fine. So then in 2019, I went to the Formation World Tour, and it was the second stop for Beyonce. And I was having some like personal things that were happening in my life. And so my husband treated me to tickets to the Beehive, which means it was a step above being front row. I was actually on stage with Beyonce.
Wow. They must
So
have cost a couple dollars, those tickets.
that
I'm
was
imagining.
not cheap,
Yes.
but my husband has been to like 10 Super Bowls. So again,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you know, he understands that if you want to have this experience,
You need to go there.
sometimes, you know, it's worth it. And it's the way he likens it. It's like a vacation, right? It's this memorable experience, and you can't put a price tag on that. So I was on stage with Beyonce, And I have, again, photographic evidence of
Which we will provide.
We will provide for all listeners.
I was probably like 3 feet away from her. At one point, she was walking down the runway, and I touched Beyonce. And again, it was like Michelangelo's creation of man. I feel like
your hand reaching out.
Yes, my life changed in that instant.
And you washed that hand?
I have since. The funny part is, the next day I came into school. This was a Thursday night. And the next day I came into school, and my students were like, oh my God, how was the Beyonce concert? Because of course I hyped it up.
Of course, yeah.
I'm in the Beehive. I'm on stage with Beyonce. I can't even imagine. It was at Lincoln Financial Field, so it was outdoors. It poured rain. And the kids that day were like, there's no way she's going to have the concert. There's no way. And so there was this whole part of the concert where she performed the song Freedom, and it was on like a splash water stage.
I love that song.
But it was actually raining. So it was like, it was amazing. And
oh my God.
so I came in the next day, and they were supposed to take a vocabulary quiz. And I was like, all right, guys, quiz canceled. I need to tell you about this experience I had.
This is good. How much time do we have?
That was it. And it was like a life lesson, and they had all kinds of questions for me. And
set your priorities.
it was definitely, I felt like they will walk away from their 11th grade British literature, English experience, probably remembering that Beyonce story more than, the importance of being earnest or Animal Farm. So.
Oh my gosh. All right. That concert story might top the.
Yeah, I don't think I have one that comes close to that.
No, I do not. Speaking of memorable moments for your students, because we did have a conversation before, you said another thing that kids will never forget is when you make a mistake or fall.
Mm-hmm.
So can you maybe tell us some of those funny stories?
Yeah. So I've definitely, for being athletic, I'm not always the most coordinated. One time I wore heels. I had to have been like 24, because what woman in her 40s wears heels to teach in? No one I know. But I was 24 and wearing heels and walking through the cafeteria early in the morning, and I bit it so hard.
Cafeteria is the worst place in a school to do that, because where are the kids there?
The kids were all there, and I fell like from a standing position, flat on my back. My bags went everywhere, like essays in the air, right? Kids started applauding. And I was, I got up and I played it off. I was like, thank you, you're welcome. Yes. But
my God.
it was certainly embarrassing, but not as embarrassing as my first year teaching. I was showing a clip from the Dame Judi Dench and Sir Ian McKellen version of Macbeth. And I was leaning back in a chair, and I was narrating the scene that was happening. It was a complicated scene that I thought was better to be watched than read aloud. And so as I was leaning back and walking them through exactly the lines that were happening and things were being said, my chair broke in half. And I fell, again, from a seated position to flat on my back with just my legs up in the air. So all my students could see was 2 legs standing up straight in the air and dead silence. Now there was a thud, there was a crash. The chair was obviously broken.
They needed to wait to see if they were going to laugh or they were going to cry.
Totally. So I heard one kid say, and I was in pain. I heard one kid say, "Is she dead?" Yeah. And that prompted me to jump up and continue teaching Macbeth, pretending it never happened. And so I moved then to my podium. It's like, the movie's still kind of playing, and I'm trying to play it off, and the kids are like, you're done. We're done. We can't. This is the funniest thing we've ever seen. This predates, this is like 2002, so this predates cell phones, thankfully.
Thank God.
Because I think I would have been like a Vine or a meme or something if this happened in 2021, for sure. Because it was, and the kids were like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm not. My head hurts so bad. I think I have a concussion.
I think it would be even worse. I think there might be a compilation video at this point.
Oh,
if
yeah.
There were cell phones from the beginning of your career.
Totally. Agreed.
Yeah. They probably still talk about that at their reunions.
Yeah. Brian Quigley, the media productions teacher, he has a video of me, again, because I think somehow I'm like the athlete that I was in a former life, which I am not. There was a basketball hoop in the English office. And so somehow, because it's the end of the day, the end of the school year, whatever it might be, we were talking about like, could you make this basket, and from what part of the office could you make it? And I was like, I could
Who
put
was having this conversation?
probably Mr. Lodwick, Mr. Geiger, myself,
Okay.
Mr. Quigley was in the room. And so I was like, I could take this basketball, put it in between my legs, and jump and get it into the basket. And they're like, there's no way you could do that. And I'm like, yes, I could. So Brian Quigley was like, let me get my camera.
Oh, no.
So he records this. Wouldn't you know that I get the ball like up in the air, but when I come down, I just wipe out and slip and fall. And he has that recorded, and he'll show it periodically on the morning announcements
Well, we're
in
gonna
slow
have
motion.
to include it now
Yes.
on our
He will-
evidence.
yes.
We're gonna have to include
Yes.
it.
He has that. He has access to that, and he does.
We're gonna have a lot of supporting links.
Yes.
Because we can't have fake news on this podcast.
No
so
fake
we are
news.
going to have to
a lot of
fact
primary
check.
source material
Yes.
for you to view.
But I'm also someone who I think it's so funny when people fall. I think it is so
No,
funny.
That's a fact. Like, that's a proven
That's a
fact.
human.
Yeah,
thing.
and I hope that it's
Yes.
like you're not injured.
Yes.
But I will laugh. I
It's
will laugh.
funny.
I will. And if I fall and nobody's around to enjoy it, I then feel like it was a waste.
Yeah. That's what security cameras are for. And you can
Totally,
go ask
yes,
to get them. Yeah. What were some of the first impressions of Abington when you first came? And can you mention like when that was for people who don't really know?
Yeah, so I grew up locally. I graduated from Upper Moreland in 1996. And the only reason I mention that is because I was one of 156 kids to graduate in 1996. So I knew everybody in my grade, I knew everybody in my school, and I knew everybody's siblings. So then when I came to Abington, which was in the fall of 2001, I couldn't believe that there was such a big pond, right? There were a lot of big fish, but this was a big pond. These kids didn't know each other. They didn't know. I could mention a girl on my lacrosse team that, kids had never heard of before. And I'm like, she's the greatest lacrosse player to ever walk these hallways. And they're like, I'm in the musical. I don't know kids on the football team, or I write for the school newspaper. I don't know kids on the lacrosse team. And so it was so interesting to me because everybody I went to high school with looked exactly like me. Everybody I went to high school with was middle class, just like I was. Everybody I went to high school with, their parents both worked jobs, again, just to keep the family in that middle class realm. And so coming to Abington, it was amazing that I thought it was like a microcosm of the world. I learned in my second year teaching, I had a student buy me Judaism for Dummies because she was like, how do you not know why and when someone is bar mitzvahed? How do you not know what Passover is? And I said, because I didn't really grow up with anyone who was Jewish. And so, but I want to learn these things. And so I think I've learned so much about people in general that I've been able to take out into the real world, because in English, you're able to have these really open discussions and this dialogue where kids share a lot about their cultural experiences or, their backgrounds. I've taught a lot of kids who are immigrants. And so one of my former students was a Syrian refugee. And just to hear her experiences, it has completely changed my opinion on the way I view the world. And so I had a student who is a migrant from Mexico and told me how he came to the United States. And so, knowing this student and knowing his struggles, again, it just shapes the lens through which I see the world. So I think Abington is such a special place to be. We are really churning out kids who are going to change this world. And I think you guys see that through your career chatter. When they come back, they are doing great things in the world.
And I just want to stop for a second and say, it is a testament to the way you teach that you even know the student stories. It's a testament to Abington, and they're here, absolutely. But it's a testament to the way you teach that you know their stories, and that
They share
should
with you.
be celebrated. And I'm glad we're sharing this podcast. So it is celebrated, because I think that's a lot of where education is moving, because it's hard to teach them anything if you don't know any of the stories.
Agreed. And I think, I feel like I have a lot to teach them, but I also know they have just as much to teach me. And so I think making that a two-way street where they don't see me as someone who looks down on them or their experiences, but someone who can grow with them. Because I do think we're navigating this COVID crisis
especially
together.
right now.
Yeah. We're all in the trenches together. And it's, when kids say to me, I don't really know what I'm doing, I have no problem saying to them,
Me either.
I don't either. I'm trying to figure it out too. And I don't know if this is going to work, but we're going to see.
We're going to try.
We're going to try.
Yes.
And we're going to try our hardest. And whatever that is from day to day might change, but we're always going to try our best.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Love it.
What is something that people get wrong about you?
So it's really interesting to me because this is my 20th year teaching English at Abington High School, but my whole life I was in, junior high and high school, I was a 3-sport athlete. I went to college and I was a 2-sport Division I athlete. I coached.
Can you name the sports?
I played field hockey and lacrosse.
Okay.
At James Madison University, and I was an All-American in both. And our field hockey team was ranked like top 8 in the country when I played there, and our lacrosse team was ranked top 4 in the country, and as high as number 2 in the country basically my entire senior year.
You'd be a good advocate for somebody. That's a time management. All that high-level sports stress. When do I get things done? All that stuff. Students who are listening who are interested in doing that. There's not a lot of people. The reason I'm saying that is because there's not a lot of people. Hey, let me check with that D1 athlete. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So for students who are listening, they check you out if they're having problems or want to do sports in college and worried about it. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think,
or if they get stereotyped like you. Sorry.
Yeah, I certainly was stereotyped in college specifically. There's no way you can be an athlete and an English major. You're dumb. If you're an athlete, there's no way you can hang with us and how intellectual our discussions are.
Take your hoodie, your sports hoodie, and get out.
Absolutely. And then I would go to practice, let's say, and my teammates would say, "Don't judge our grammar. Don't, I'm not smart as you are. I don't understand that analogy." And so you're like, okay. But then when I started here, everyone assumed I was a phys ed teacher and not an English teacher. And I even had parents say to me, "You don't look like an English teacher." And I would say, because I have a sharp tongue, which, my mother, that was probably the thing that she thought was my biggest flaw. I would say back to these parents, well, what does an English teacher look like? A tweed blazer with elbow patches, smoking a cigar, sitting in an oversized leather chair with a graying beard, reading the New Yorker and listening to NPR. I am the best English teacher I can be. And so whatever you think it looks like or whatever that stereotype is, I hope to break that mold because I'm going to try my hard to be the best English teacher I can be.
That whole you don't look like fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
It's just interesting that people are open enough to say it or confident enough to say it. I can't decide because I get that as well. You don't look like a librarian. I don't know. I say the same thing. I'm just well, I'll get old eventually if that's what you mean. You know what I mean? If they always are older.
Yeah.
Or something. But
we could give Miss Bowles a cardigan or something. So
I get you a tweed. We could.
Or perhaps it might be a turtleneck with apples on it and a long jean dress.
A jean dress.
A jean dress.
Do you think you got it more when you were first starting?
I do.
You look like a young college athlete or something?
I do. And I think back then I would get stopped and asked for hall passes all the time. And, I was coaching a lot.
The coaching does lean you towards the gym and phys ed.
It does.
People do that.
And I think I was down that area a lot. I was helping with Varsity A. I was helping Mr. Wiley run Maroon and White Night. I was involved in a lot of the athletic aspects of Abington.
But you can do both.
I was just going to say, people can be more than one thing. And that's...
You can be the jock and the science geek.
And you can be in the play,
and
you can do other things. So that's another takeaway that I would love for people to get from this.
Well, so I used to, this is interesting, and I don't know if either of you know this about me, but for the first 10 years of my career, maybe 12 years of my career, I used to take Brave New World, the novel, and make my students transform it into a musical, and we would perform it in the Odeon.
Wait.
I love it.
Yes.
Wait. Say that again. Say that again.
So probably
such an uplifting book for
yes,
musical.
Probably the project I was best known for. And if you could ask anyone from the first, again,
I student taught in 2004 here.
Yes.
And it's ringing a bell.
It is.
You were on the stage.
We were on the stage. My students would take the book. They would create a script. They would cast a show. They would write song parodies. And then I would break them into actors, what I would call public relations. They had to do a playbill and they had to do posters and they had to invite people to come see these performances. And then I had kids who were more artistic doing set design. So they would paint these backdrops that were, and I have the recordings of all of those Brave New Worlds as well. Kids still reach out to me to say that was the best thing I ever did. I still remember every detail about Brave New World. And when people would ask me, why do you do that? I said, because I never would have realized how much I loved being on a stage until I was given the opportunity to do that. And because I went to a small school, I had the opportunity to do that. I would never have
try it.
Totally. I never would have been cast in an Abington musical.
With-
These kids can actually sing and perform, and they have talent. I did not. So I used to do that project for years and years and years, and they really took it from page to stage, and everything the kids generated themselves. And again, hopefully we can share some of that
footage
with this podcast for sure.
Yes. Oh my gosh, our
That's
links are
great.
going to be plentiful
But
underneath.
Miss Bowles, what you don't have in talent, you make up for with enthusiasm and commitment.
But I don't
So
think
we
the
love that.
singing. The singing isn't. You do sing a little bit, right? It's not like me whipping out a song. Like
Yeah,
like
I
you
mean-
sing. I'm not saying you're like Beyonce, but
no, I
but
love
you sing.
karaoke. I think I
Yeah.
can carry a tune. I know
Yeah.
what's in my wheelhouse, and you're never going to hear me singing Adele. You'll
Yeah.
actually never hear me singing Beyonce.
yeah. Oh.
And my students are always surprised by that. They're like, why are you not singing Love on Top? I'm like, who can hit those octave changes?
No.
Not me. I can't do it. I know what I can sing, and I'm constantly thinking about what my karaoke catalog is.
Yeah. Mhm.
What's your number one karaoke
What's your
song?
song?
Great question. Right now, I'm loving Spice Girls, which is another great concert experience I had.
You went to a Spice Girls concert?
I did in 2008. My childhood best friend was in Rent the Musical, and he performed alongside of Scary Spice. So he called me up in 2008. I was at school, and he said, I have 5 VIP tickets to the Spice Girls concert in New York tonight. Can you get here? And I was like, I will be there.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes. So I drove from Abington High School to New York City. I think I bought something at like H&M that was in his neighborhood. We went to the concert at Madison Square Garden. We were, again, on the runway. She leans down, Scary Spice, and hugs my friend in the middle of the concert. And then we get escorted backstage with the Spice Girls. And this is right after
You're
Scary...
living the life, Miss
Oh, I know.
Bowles.
No, it's not really. This is right after Scary Spice birthed Eddie Murphy's baby.
Oh my God, that's when she was at the top.
And she handed me her child at one point, and I was holding this baby like, oh my God,
Eddie
I'm
Murphy's child.
holding Eddie Murphy's child, who to me at that time was bigger than Scary Spice,
She
right?
tried to deny it. too.
Then, yes,
Oh.
then we went to their after party, which all of the Spice Girls were at except for Posh. So I met every single Spice Girl, and then I had to drive back to Philadelphia and come in to teach the next day. It was just really this crazy whirlwind experience.
Did you
but
cancel the quiz?
I was just
and
going to say.
talk
Did I
about Spice
cancel
Girls?
it? No,
Or
because
lesson
you know what's
suspended.
funny? My students had no idea who the Spice Girls were
Oh my
at
God.
all.
What do you think makes Abington unique?
I think what makes Abington unique, and I really believe this, I'm not just saying this for a podcast, is whatever I hear about teenagers in the outside world, I don't see in my classroom. I think my students, I think Abington students are kind. I think they are compassionate. I think they understand the world. I think they genuinely want to make this world a better place. People say to me all the time, how do you deal with teenagers? They're miserable. And I say, some days I wonder how I get paid for doing this because they bring me so much joy. They're so thoughtful. I can take you through things that have happened in my life to the point where, we put our cat down. The next day, a student wrote my husband, who she never met, a 3-page letter about losing her dog and helping give him advice as to how you navigate the loss of a pet. And so even when I was pregnant, students threw me a surprise baby shower that they planned with food and gifts and, just so thoughtful and so
They had to put themselves out there. for that.
absolutely so respectful towards each other that I've seen just really beautiful things happen here. And I mentioned in our first podcast recording that I was running Varsity A one year, and a student came to me to submit an application, and his name was Chris King, and he had Down syndrome, and he,
Great
Miss
kid.
Jadlinski didn't really think that his name would even make the ballot because no one really knew him.
Mhm.
And so he ended up not only being crowned homecoming king, but kids did know him, and he was so friendly and everybody loved him. that when I counted those votes, and again, I'm dating myself here by saying I counted them by hand before everything, before Google Forms existed. And he won in such a landslide that I asked the administrator, can I stop counting? Right? Because there's like 2,000 votes. And the next closest person had like 42 votes.
How thrilled was that kid?
He
was delighted.
Yes. So I gave the news to the administrators who went down and told him. And apparently he just was over the moon with excitement. He was
beaming.
And the fact that this child had that experience and
with a school of 2,000 kids.
Yes, again, going back to the big pond, right? It's so easy to get lost. And for our school to rally around Chris King, I mean, I think it was just a beautiful moment. And hopefully one that all of them will treasure forever. Yeah. And so I think those are things that you like see on the news because they're special. Mm-hmm. But I think they're like commonplace here at Abington, where everyone
We're just used to so many different types of humans.
Yes, maybe. And everyone rallies around each other, whatever it is, whoever it is, whatever they need. Yeah. Look at the fact that right now, the senior class council is taking dress donations to open up a dress shop for kids who maybe have had a difficult time through, the last year because of COVID, so that everybody has the opportunity to look special on that important day. And I think it just really is, as a community, and this goes back to the Abington community, what a great place to live, what a great place to raise your children.
If you could tell your high school self something that you know now that you wish you knew back then, what would you say?
So this is really interesting. We were asked this as a faculty for like a bulletin board, and I really did take the time to think about it, and I promise you my answer is still the same thing. I would tell my high school self, be kinder to your parents. My parents were always Team Julie, but I just didn't think they were. They always had my best interests in mind, yet I thought they were trying to like obstruct my social life. I thought they were too hard on me. I thought they were, my mom would always call me on my birthday at
7
whatever time it was, right? And I was like, God, I get it, Mom. You love me. You love me so much. Like, it's so annoying. Or even, my mom would sit across from me and she would say, you have the most beautiful eyes. Oh, Julie's my favorite name. Julie's the best name a girl could ever have. And I'm like, Mom, enough, right?
Sweet.
And so now that I am a mother, looking back, my high school self, my mom, I would get so annoyed because she would show up to my musical rehearsal. So I'd go from school to lacrosse practice to musical rehearsal. She'd show up at 7:00 with a meal on a plate, and she'd be like, I just wanted to make sure you ate. And I'm like, Mom, we're ordering pizza. Like, get out of here, right?
Which is a normal, I just want to defend you. That is a very normal teenage response, but that is so cute.
So I do think it was like so sweet, the things my parents would do, and I didn't realize it. They could only ever come to maybe one field hockey game a season, one lacrosse game a season. And they would say to me, Julie, we work until 5:00. I don't know what your friends' parents do, but they can show up to every game at 3:30 and even the away games, but we work. And if you want to have the new field hockey stick or you want to have the new lacrosse shorts, we can't leave our job. And so it really did make me value the times that they were there. And also, to the same point, how I was doing in school and or how I played on the field was never the topic of dinner conversation. It was, did you try your hardest? Mm-hmm. Great. Let's talk about how you're doing. Let's talk. We ate together as a family every night. And it was never that I was held to a high standard, but it was never the focal point of what made me me. Like, my parents genuinely loved me. They didn't care.
If you did well, they loved you more. If you did
totally, yes. It wasn't a reflection of whether I was first team all league or first team all American or, in the top 10% of my class. That really was I happy? Mm-hmm. And that's what their questions sort of focused around. And so I think I wouldn't see my parents as the enemy as much as I did then. I would have appreciated my time with them more. My mom used to, on Friday nights, before I could go out, we had to have like family game night. And so
how old did that go?
Through high school.
So adorable.
Through high school. So it was mostly Uno that we would play.
I'm stealing them.
Yahtzee sometimes, and she would make me sit and play Uno with her. She would make me sit and do these things with her before I could go out with my friends. And so I would, what is it? The 500 rummy, right? We'd play that and we'd keep score and things along that line.
That takes a while.
It does take a while. And so, it was important for us to have, again, as I said, yes. With, I didn't grow up with a lot, meaning I didn't have a lot of material possessions. We didn't have a big house. We didn't have fancy cars, but we grew up in such a house with love and respect. And it's these memories that I have, these, that I think looking back now, I say my high school experience was like High School Musical, but it's because my parents encouraged me to try out for the musical. They encouraged me to, my first day in 9th grade of field hockey, right? The first sport I ever played, my dad drove me and I sat in the car. I'm like, I can't do it. I can't get out. I can't do it. I'll never make the team. My dad got out of the car. He opened the door. He gave me my bag. He said, not only are you going to do it, you're going to be the best on that team, right? We won the state championship that year and I was the leading scorer. And I couldn't even get out of the car on the first day. And so my parents always encouraged me. I think maybe sometimes I'm a little too confident, right?
Yeah.
But I was always supported with love. And so I think a lot of times my dad still tells a story about he agreed to chaperone a trip one time. He took the day off work, which is like a big deal for him, to chaperone a school trip with me. And I cried on the kitchen floor and said, you're going to ruin my life. Why would you do this to me? Right? And he still talks about it. Like,
kids sometimes are the worst.
But they get better.
Yes.
Yes.
There's a time frame.
But I understand. I mean, you take it from our perspective now that we're all parents, and that seems horrible.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel that long ago. I would have been mortified.
Yes.
And I love my parents.
I mastered the eye roll in my.
Oh my gosh! To have your parent be present when you were trying to do your thing at school or whatever on the trip
is mortifying.
So don't beat yourself up too much. But God love your parents.
Oh yeah, I mean my parents deserve to be sainted for surviving.
He's laughing when he tells the story now. He's laughing.
Oh,
right?
of course, because he looked at me and he's like, "You're so ridiculous and so dramatic, and it's not that complicated." And so I think what I would tell, I made the most of my high school experience. That's why I don't have any regrets about I would change this or I would work harder. No, I worked as hard as a high schooler could work. I got a full scholarship to college. I was accepted to Princeton, Duke, you name it. I mean, I achieved.
Smart and a job.
I know.
So,
but how did you do both of them? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. So I think it really is for me the fact that I would have been kinder to my parents. 100%.
I love that.
That's adolescence, unfortunately.
Yes, right?
And you do get
But we do have the hindsight because we are older now. So for the young ones listening, even if it helps a tad, even if it just makes them think a little bit, I wonder what it would be like to be older and look back on my tantrum on the floor when my parents said they're going to come to the dance. So whatever, you might be enlightening a couple of people.
And it's something as simple as my mom would say to me, will you hold my hand? Right? And I was like, 30. Mom, what? And you do it, and it means the world to her.
Yes.
So, it is hugging your parents. I always say to my students when they're graduating, this moment is as much yours as it is your parents. If they start to cry, if they want more pictures, remember, they put you on the bus. You stand there and you smile and you take all of the pictures and you let them enjoy this moment because it is as much theirs. They have been through this journey every step of the way with you.
Oh gosh, thinking about my kids graduating high school, that is a lot, right, Miss? You did that, man.
Yeah.
Oof, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
Julie, you killed it once again.
Thank you.
You did a round 2. There will not be a round 3 because this is going to be edited so well. It's going to be spectacular. And we thank you for your time, and we thank you for being the first guest, and many more to come.
And those pictures.
Oh yeah, the evidence.
Yes, we will have. I will send you all of it.
We're going to organize the evidence, and everybody have a nice day, and we'll see you next episode. Bye.
Goodbye.